Welcome back to Living with a Classic, and if you're new to my channel and you're into these kind of videos, I hope you stick around and consider subscribing. I put out new videos every week on some Jaguar and classic car related content. And today's video is a little bit different, or at least the intro is a little bit different. I usually always film the intro before the video, because we're planning out what I'm going to do, and then we'll see what happens. And I did have a different intro for this video, but as you saw in that brief little teaser, yes, the car did start, and we're gonna, you're gonna see all that in a little bit. However, things did not really go to plan. It did start and run, but I did find some issues with it once I got it started. You'll see all that in the video, and maybe you'll notice it right away in the beginning of the video. You'll see smoke in some odd places and some things, and I couldn't see all of this until I was editing the footage because I was sitting inside the car cranking it over. So a lot of stuff I didn't know at the time when I was talking to camera and filming this. So if you see a bunch of these things, then I wasn't aware of it. And also I was really happy and blissful because the thing does start up, and I was just really excited about that, and I didn't really notice any other things, but all that will come later in the video. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, things don't always go to plan. Part 1, I got a lot of comments where people were really excited and really positive about getting this thing going. Kind of exactly the same as me, you're excited about getting things going. I got a few comments as well where people thought this was completely pointless. And like I also mentioned later in this video is, we bought this car, my friend of mine bought this car kind of figuring that we would do an engine swap. But this is just a fun thing to see if we can get it going. Not really spending any money, like just some oil and some ATF and, some electricity to charge up the battery. But really we're not spending any money at all. It's just a fun thing to see if we can get it going. If we can't get it going, we'll decide if we rebuild this engine or if we get a different one. But now, enough for this intro. Let's head on over and you guys will see if we can get this thing started up. Okay, so back at the car, and a few things have happened and changed since the last video. There were still a few cylinders that had really low compression, so I put more ATF down those, let those sit for a few days, spun the engine over to get any of that out of there. I haven't taken a second compression reading on them, or like a fourth or a fifth, whatever I'm up to now. Kind of felt pointless at this time. It's still going to be probably pretty low. I did put new plugs in it, so I got new OEM plugs all the way around. Before I put the plugs in, just a few minutes ago, I put in a couple of drops of normal engine oil, so not ATF, just the engine oil that's supposed to be in this car, just to help it a little bit more. Put the plugs in, put coils in, and yeah, put some anti-seize on the plugs like I always do, since I will be probably taking them out pretty soon again. I put the fuse back in the trunk for the fuel pump, and that's pretty much it. And yeah, I charged up the battery again. My plan was to get the car out of here because it was gonna, it's probably gonna smoke a lot if it does start. However, brakes are pretty much kind of, well, not stuck on. I can only rock it a little bit. I'm here by myself, so the one thing is that if I get it out of here and I start it up outside, what if it doesn't start up? Then I have to try and get it back in here again to continue. So what I'm going to do is, if it starts up, I have cleared a path, so I will, be in the driver's seat, I will put it in drive, and I will pretty much just drive it out of here so it doesn't smoke up as bad, or let's hope so. But I think if it does go off, it's going to be quite a smoke show. So my plan now is to try and start it up. I'm going to do the thing that's in the manual if these are flooded. So I'm going to put my foot flat to the floor. I'm supposed to cut off fueling. I'll crank it over for a little bit, and I'll slowly let my foot up, and that will then start adding fuel, and hopefully it will fire off. And I've gotten a few tips from people who've done this a few times as well, and they said that just keep cranking it, even if you think you're gonna blow the starter. If you feel like it's firing, you feel like it's almost there, just keep cranking it. It's gonna start, and it's better just to keep cranking, because if you fail there, then you pretty much have to start over, take the plugs out, and go back again. So I'll set up the camera now, and fingers crossed that we can get this thing going. The only thing I kind of noticed is, I'm not sure if I can hear the fuel pump or not. It's it's really quiet on these cars. I've turned the key a few times with the fuse in. I'm not really sure if I'm hearing it, so that could be a thing, that maybe the fuel pump is not working. But let's just try and see what happens. Oh, and one more thing has changed that I forgot to mention. You probably noticed there is a coil in there for cylinder 3. I put a plug in there and a coil in there. I'm just gonna go for it, see what happens, if it fires up and then it runs. And if it doesn't run on that cylinder, we'll continue investigating and maybe try pulling the injector and see if we can get it to heat up. But I'm just gonna try and we'll see what happens. Okay, let's see what happens. I can't believe it runs. Okay, it's a terrible smoke show in here. I'll just move the camera a bit so you can see. So I'm just gonna move this camera out of the way, get in it, and try and get out of here to clear some of the smoke. So an update and, well, a little bit of a setback. So when I tried to put it in gear, even if I was holding the revs up, it stalled right away and it just doesn't want to restart. Even with the foot flat to the floor, cutting off the fuel and slowly letting it off the same way I started before, it will, fire on a few cylinders, but it won't fire off. So I've taken out all the spark plugs again, and except that one, which is a little oily, which makes sense. All the other ones, they came out drenched in fuel and yeah, they smell a lot like fuel. So I'm gonna clean those off. Also gonna let the engine just air out to get out any of the fuel. It's still hot, so all the fuel hopefully in there should evaporate and go out of there. And same thing again, I'm gonna put a little bit of oil in there like I did before, put the plugs in, foot flat to the floor. Hopefully it fires up, and if I can keep it running, I'm not going to put it in gear. I'm not going to do anything like that. Don't care how much it smokes. Do have a fire extinguisher, so if it starts smoking in that kind of way. But I'm just going to let it run, get it up to operating temperature, at least 15 minutes, or probably let it run for at least half an hour, get it fully warmed up before I even dare to turn it off. And then I'm going to let it fully cool down before I'm going to try and start it a second time, but that might not be in this video. But fingers crossed it will start up again and that the smoke will clear after it's run for a while. Now everything is back together again. I'll let the engine air out, put some oil in it like before, and put the plugs in. However, before I let it air out, I actually tried the compression just on cylinder number 2, just for fun. I put, just like we done before, wet compression reading, tiny little squirt of oil in there, not that much at all. Spun it over, and I got about 90 or 100 psi, which is great because that was a 70 psi before. So fingers crossed it's going to start up again, and doesn't matter how much it smokes or anything. I have a fire extinguisher here. I'm just going to let it run until the smoke clears and it gets up to operating temperature, and hopefully it will run well and actually be able to go into gear and move out of here. But I'm at least just going to let it warm up and see what happens. Alright, it's been idling here for about 10 minutes and the smoke is starting to clear. It got really a lot worse for a while and now it's actually a little better. I think it's running on all cylinders. There's a slight vibration, but I think it's running on all. Of course, the compression's not the greatest. Some smoke coming off over there, and I think that's just some oil I got on the headers. And if you look back here, yeah, it's still smoking and it still doesn't smell the best, but fortunately it's not completely up to temperature yet. It's only about a quarter of the way of this on the scale, and it's kind of been there for a while, so not really sure exactly. I did fill it up with some water before, put in about almost a liter, but that's gone from here now, so Either there's a leak somewhere, have a look in the ground, or it was low on coolant and it's just got taken the coolant in. It's still a little bit low, but I still don't want to turn it off now. It's just so it doesn't just want to restart again. It's just sitting here idling, and even if it would be a little bit low on water, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I think I'm gonna see if I can actually get it out of here. So hold it in, hold up the throttle a bit, put in gear, and see if it will drive out of here. So let's see, hopefully that happens without it dying again. Alright, it's a while later, and a little bit of a sad end, a little bit of a disappointment. So I tried to put it in gear again after about 15 minutes or so, and died right away. So I thought, okay, I'm not gonna smoke up that building anymore. So I went and grabbed the tractor and pulled it out with the handbrake slightly on, just so it wouldn't slide too fast and crash into the tractor. Pulled out the plugs again, did the exact same thing, got it going, and smoked like crazy again. But right before that, I checked the coolant level again, which I topped up the first time. And I saw it had gone down a little bit, and that it wasn't smelling the best. Let's go and have a look at that. But yeah, just initially have a look at the smoke from there, and a little residue in there. We'll talk about that in a bit. But anyway, so it was smelling pretty bad from over here. And there's like weird debris and stuff in there, but I filled up with water all the way, put it up, started up. Once again, it pretty much fired up right away, smoked a lot. And then I decided to, you know, while it was still pretty cold, pull the cap and see, and it was pretty much smoking almost as bad from here as it was from the exhaust. And that's when I started thinking, okay, there's probably more things that's happened in this car. Probably has a head gasket issue or a cracked head or something going on with it. But I topped up the water and I just, you know, left it running, because then it started smoking less, and I thought, okay, let's just keep it running. So I did, and it would never go up all the way on the temperature gauge. It would only stay up to about a quarter right there, and the water would disappear. And whenever I added more water, just, you know, straight from there, it would smoke a lot more. And I noticed that it was leaking and dripping down here. So I mean, this thing is definitely shot, the expansion tank. So my guess of what has happened is that the previous owner who had the car probably had a leak from the expansion tank, and there's no warning lights on these cars to let you know if that's low. Probably leaked out. The car probably overheated. Maybe it didn't overheat, like, so it stalled right away, but when he came home it was definitely overheated, but it wouldn't show it on the gauge because there's something wrong with the gauge, because it doesn't show that it's hot. Because I just let it run now at idle and it just completely shut off. I've checked, it's not seized or anything, but you know, it smells hot, even though it hasn't gotten hot on the gauge. And it's really weird because I can't really see any water movement or anything, so it could be pretty much anything. You can have no movement from the water pump in it, could have really bad head gasket failure. Let's have a look at that thing in the back again, and there's no milkshake or anything in the oil, but doesn't that, like, it's my shadow, doesn't that look like a little bit of milkshake-y thing in there? So maybe that is water or coolant in the exhaust mixed with all the oil in the exhaust. Who knows? So that's a little bit of a disappointment. However, the friend of mine who got this car, when we got it, we planned to actually just swap out the engine, but this was just sort of a fun thing to see if we could get this thing going. And we did get it going, and it ran on all cylinders. It was pretty smooth, smoked like crazy. It probably has head gasket issues. So we're gonna look at what it costs to get a replacement engine, and if we can get one right now. It's kind of hard with international shipment because we might have to get one from like abroad with COVID and all of that, or maybe we whip off the heads off this one. But I think it's a lot better just to get a replacement engine, because the gasket set for these engines are pretty expensive, and I think all the time to take this apart, put it back together, it'd be a lot faster just to take this engine out and put in a replacement one that you know is good. Yeah, but that's it for now. But just, you know, back to the workshop. Alright, so back in the workshop, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little bit disappointed. I actually am. Once we got those compression levels up in the first part, and once it fired up now, because it did fire up pretty much right away. I mean, that it wasn't firing in the beginning, that was just me holding the foot flat to the floor and there was no fuel getting to it. As soon as I lifted off my foot a little bit, it cranked into life. So, I mean, I was really excited, and in between filming, I was on the phone with the owner, we were talking, and we were really excited, man, what if we could save this engine? That'd be really great. But as it turns out, we can't. It definitely has some issues, and now when we saw it was smoking really badly, and that wasn't just oil. I was being kind of foolish thinking it probably just was oil, but you know, in the moment you're a little bit over enthusiastic and just way too into it, and sometimes you overlook some of the negative things. I mean, that was just coolant, a lot of that smoke. The oil smoke would have cleared a lot quicker than that. That would have cleared within 5 minutes or so. It wouldn't keep going 15 minutes later. So definitely there are issues with it. I'm going to have a look to try and find an engine. I've done a little bit of research and I realized that the engines from an X308 will fit if it's an early one, and the early XKs as well. It has to be the 2 sensor engines, they're called. They have 2 basically crank position, or not crank, but camshaft sensors. Needs to have that. However, if I get it from something else than an S-type, I will have to change over the oil pan or the sump and a few other parts and the intake, but we have the other engine, so that's no problem moving things over. So I'm going to be calling around junkyards and various people I know and hopefully get a hold of the engine. If you're in Europe and you know of an engine somewhere and you know of a way of shipping it internationally, then please let me know in the comments down below, or shoot me an email if you know of an engine at all. Or if you are pretty near to me, pretty near here in Sweden, you know of an engine, or you know of a car, a rusted out one, or one that's been in a wreck or something, could be interested in just picking up the whole car as well and pulling the engine. So let me know in the comments down below. And even though this was maybe a little bit disappointed, let me know if you guys like this type of video, if you like, you know, trying to see if we can get things going, sort of a little bit on a budget and see what happens. Also, let me know if you want to see more of this car on this channel, if I want to get the new engine, if you want to see the engine swap and all that on the channel. Let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, it really helps out a lot. And until next time, I'm Adam, and this was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.